pain comes back, you feel it in your chest. It pumps through your veins and it denies you your rest. As your body grows numb, oh, you fear it's the end. But this is a battle you can win. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So hold on a little more. Things got crazy in this whole world. So hold on, and it'll be clear. The truth is coming, hope is here. Don't let the rain dampen your spirit. Don't let the clouds darken your heart. Don't let the wind blow away your joy. No, truth will be coming now in the sun. Oh, oh, yeah, I can feel it coming on. Oh, I can feel it. I can feel it. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, we gotta hold on a little more, 'cause things got crazy over this whole world. So hold on, and it'll be clear. The truth is coming now, hope is here. Hey, thank you guys.
Good morning, Creative Morning. My name is Portia Vivian Love. I am a writer, and I started writing when I was 12 years old. I write poetry and I write murder mysteries, and I know that's kind of strange. And in the interim, also, I have written a play, and that's why I'm here today. My play is about the underdog. It's the only play that I've ever written, and there's a theater here, and a friend of mine owns it and asked me to come and do the play. It was a wonderful experience. I think that if anybody had told me what we would have to go through in order to get it done, I would have, when they asked me to do it, instead of saying yes, I would have turned around and run away screaming with my hands waving in the air. But anyway, about 41 years ago, I'm 64 now, and this was at my first responsible job. I worked in downtown Los Angeles that has even then, a very high homeless population. And I was downstairs on break with one of the people that I worked with, and I said to her, why don't they just get a job? And I could kick myself even now for such an insensitive statement, but I was very young and I didn't know any better. And so what she did was, instead of attacking me, which she really could have done, she started to tell me these people's stories. She had worked there a lot longer than I had, and so she knew these people because they were there around our stoop where we would take a break every day. And as I started to learn their stories, I realized that any one of them could have been me or her or someone in my family. And so keeping that in mind, it was 20 years, maybe even a little bit more later, when I actually wrote my play. The homeless population has always been one of my things, my concerns, and I really believe that in America we are in a position where we really don't have to have any people that are homeless or hungry. So anyway, I wrote this play. And I went to the theater here, and again, my friend owned it, and she said, I want you to do your play here. It was a wonderful experience. It was a horrible experience. It was exciting. It was a lot of different things. And so what I will do, I think right now, I'm going to read one of the poems that we used in the play. There were several of them that went through the play, and then the actors or the people who were portraying the parts, I'll kind of talk about how the play went. But this poem is called Jesus Saves. I do not try to soar above, 'cause I drive a car they don't. I will give them my last quarter when other people won't. I move amongst them easily, 'cause poverty we share. Folks look at me and wonder, what is she doing down there? I do not jump at their shadows. I pass them with no fear. I am one with the darkness. I too belong down here. I am one paycheck away from sharing an alley with them. And while others won't admit it, it's very hard to do, they are also a paycheck away from being out here too. We live in a world that's cruel and mean at best. It loves no one who sleeps and begs for just some small spare change, then nods out on the streets. I give it to them readily. It's for food, they say. I tell them that I understand. I don't condone it, but I still say it's okay. I treat them as sisters and brothers or family of some sort, even though we both know that the food is most likely white pork. And though I know for some it's all just a game, I also know some despairing minds lack strength to deal with the pain. So when you timidly come down here to tell them Jesus saves, don't hand them a church pamphlet and then just walk away. Listen to their stories. What you'll find when you do is but for the grace of God, that nut drunk or junkie is you. When you leave them out in the cold to go home and turn up the heat, remember someone ain't got none out there living and are dying on the streets. So what I wanted to do with my play, I remembered that my learning and my knowledge in the homeless people were in stories. And all of us have a story, whether we're homeless or not. And they make up our lives, some of the things that have impacted our lives, some of the tragedies. And I've tended to find out that the majority of the people who are homeless, a large percentage of them have mental health illnesses. So anyway, I went back to school and I got my bachelor's degree at 36 and my master's at 39. And I worked with people through vocational rehabilitation for the state of Nebraska. And I had a large homeless population. And I just learned that they're just people and life has thrown some of them a curve. I'm not going to say that everybody's homelessness is caused by something outside of you, but I am going to say that regardless of how it's caused, even if it's that person's fault, it's a terrible position to be in. I found myself homeless and moved into a shelter and stayed there for almost 3 months. They were saying that if you came in and you stayed there, they would help you find a place to live, and I did that. It was not the most ideal situation, but it wasn't the worst either. I was kind of staying here and staying there with friends and family. And when I got there, I found that I had my own space, and that was good enough for me for a while. I followed the rules, got in a place and got out of there, and it was great. It consisted of a dormitory of about 31 to 33 women. And we had to do chores. It was really not just a horrendous experience. And one of the things I say was the worst part of it to me was the 6 o'clock curfew. That drove me crazy. But other than that, I did what was necessary to get through. So when I wrote my play, I was just writing it. I'd never written a play. I haven't written one since. But I wrote stories that came to mind and just developed those stories. And so when I was staffing the play, I did not want actors. And I did end up having a few, and I'm glad that I got the few that I did. But what I wanted was people who could, they could internalize the story. And I felt that if they could feel the story, they could make you feel the story. And it ended up, my vision was a certain thing for the play, and I had no expectation that my vision would be met, and yet it was totally met by the wonderful people that I worked with. So what they would do is our play took place on a street corner, And people were constantly moving on the street as if it was a regular busy street corner. And they were interacting, and there were people on the ground shooting craps. There was all kinds of things going on the street corner. And then someone would walk out of the group of people who were moving across the stage and step out and tell you their story. I wrote them, so I think the world of them, and I think they were very powerful stories. I would say that probably out of the 10 stories, 12 stories, maybe, I would say maybe 2 of them were true, and the other ones were a part of my mind. We got a really, really great reaction to the play. I had 3 performances. The one was a Sunday matinee, and found out that people were at the Sunday matinee, and as they got into the play, were texting people and saying, you got to come to this. So we were sold out for the first one, and we were sold out standing room only for the second and the third. It was a wonderful thing. But it gave me an opportunity to try and get people to look at our homeless population in a different way, to recognize that these are all individual people, and some things have happened in their lives that have maybe driven them to the mental health issues that they have. And there are circumstances in life that all of us are capable of running into that could create your homelessness. So it was a wonderful thing. I was really happy with it, and I was able to get people. A lot of people came and said, "I never thought of it like this. I never thought about the fact that this person that I'm seeing that's standing out here panhandling, or that's in the shelters, or that's hanging out and sleeping under the bridges has a story, and that there were life circumstances and a part of their story that brought them to this place." I think that it's very important that we recognize that, and that we realize that they need our help, not our condemnation. And that was the thing that when I think back on those words that I said, I could just slap myself even all of these many years later, because it was very insensitive, but it was spoken from not having the knowledge. Again, began to work with homeless people. Um, but we're talking about the underdog today. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't join with the homeless population, the things that are going on here too with artists, Black artists, or artists of color in Omaha, Nebraska. It's very important that we start to publicize the fact that our artists here, our artists of color, are ignored in just about every genre: music, writing, and many others. And so that's another thing that is a part of this whole underdog thing for me, that I'm constantly fighting personally, because I am a Black artist in Omaha, Nebraska, but also for other artists. I think that it's very important to recognize that we have been, it's like we don't exist. There was a project that was started here called the Carver Bank Residency. The Carver Bank was through the Bemis Foundation for the Arts here. And an artist from Chicago, his name was Theaster Gates, came to Omaha, and someone took him on a tour all over Omaha, introducing him to artists. And when the whole thing was over with, he said, "Don't they have any Black artists or artists of color in Omaha, Nebraska?" And they said, "Well, of course they do." He said, "I haven't seen one today." And so that is how the Carver Bank program got created. And it was a group of artists of color for the first year. And they had 2 years after that. And I was in the group that was chosen in the first year. It was a residency that lasted a year. And it was just amazing, to get out there and see all these wonderful creative people. I'm around creative people, especially musicians. My father, whose name was Preston Love Sr., was a musician, and I was his singer for about 15 years. And because of him being who he was, I know all of the musicians, and I've known most of them since they were kids. And so it's it's a very disheartening thing to be a part of this group of forgotten people. I remember saying to someone, and I really mean it, and that the play was so well received. And I thought, if I was not a Black female, I don't think that this play would have just stopped like it did after the last performance. But it was a very positive experience. I learned a lot of things about producing a play, things you wanted to know about producing a play, but didn't need to ask or didn't want to ask and really didn't care to ask. So I had two people that were my backup. They took over. I told them, I said, just tell me where to go and what to do. I know how to stay in my lane. I don't know anything about producing a play. And that was Jessica Schurman and also Tracy Baker. And Tracy is with the Nebraska Writers Collaborative. And they're just, oh my God, that's such a wonderful, wonderful place. And they came and took over and said, go here and do that, go here and do that. And that's what I did. And so it all pulled together. I am hoping that and praying that our attitudes in the United States, in Omaha, in wherever you want to call it, change about homeless people, and that we start to recognize that they are homeless, but behind that, they're people. They're people who have families. There were families of people in the shelter, people there with their children living in shelters. It's a horrendous thing to see, and I just really am hoping that we in the United States, you know, we're one of the richest nations in the world, right? And I just have always believed, why do we have homeless people? Why do we have people here who are hungry? We should be able to house and feed and clothe and all of those things our people so that they're not out on the streets. I don't know how many of you are listening from Omaha, Nebraska, but can you imagine being in a city that goes below zero, freezing temperatures and snow and ice and living out on the streets? I can't even envision what that would be like, especially since I hate cold so much. So, any questions that anybody might have to ask me or in any discussion? Oh, by the way, I say this to all audiences when I get the chance. I'm looking for an agent. If there's somebody out there that's a literary agent or you know somebody personally, please send them my way. Okay.
People ask if where they can see your play.
I'm sorry.
They can find your play anywhere or where it was.
It was performed at the B-Side Theater here in Benson. And I actually have CDs. It's recorded, and I have a stack of them. And if somebody wants one, they can email me. Can I give my email? At Portia, and it's spelled P like Paul, O-R, T like Tom, I-A, V for Vivian, 18 at yahoo.com. I'll be glad to send you one. The video is clear. It's a good video. The sound is not so good, so you're probably going to have to pump up the volume on your TV all the way to the top, but it's still, every part is there. And then there was a question and answer period after each performance because that was required by the people that gave me my grant. And so we have some interesting comments, and people, you know, were really able to weigh in on what they thought and how the play made them feel. Yes, I'm always working on projects. There's a couple things that I'm doing during the coronavirus days. I was in the grocery store and I saw a friend of mine, but she had her mask on. I didn't know who she was. She pulled it down. I said, hi. And she said, how are you weathering this? And I said, I'm losing my mind because I am retired, but I do not sit still. I find me some business every day I get out on the street. And so she said, come on, Portia. She said, you can't be bored. You're a writer. Write something. So I started a group page on Facebook. It's called the Coronavirus Days. And every day I write something on there, and that has been, it's been phenomenal. People comment, and I looked yesterday, I used to watch it even more closely, but we've got almost 100 members. So I put poetry on there. I wrote a poem, actually wrote a poem last night to put on there yesterday. And so the other projects I'm working on is I've completed 2 murder mystery books, and I stopped writing for a while. I was so discouraged after, the play, but I've started writing on them again. So I've got 2 murder mysteries completed, and I'm working on 2 more. I work on 2 books at a time because that way I never have writer's block. If I can't think of something to write on this one, they're totally different. So I just move over to this one, and it works out for me. So I'm working on my next 2 murder mysteries, and I'm always writing poetry and just, whatever I can to keep writing. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.